Hello, I'm Phil Ernest in Milan, and this is Duomo. Italy is approximately the same size as California in the United States. Milan is a 3-hour drive north from Florence. In today's video, I'll give you a brief introduction to Milan and take you inside 4 unique churches. And inside that yellow building right there is the painting of The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. You are looking at the Holy Grace of Mary Church, beautifully all lit up at night. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This church was completed in 1497. So this is the church next to the Last Supper. As you enter in the doors, you immediately notice this church is quite different from the other ones that I've been in or seen, simply because they have these little folding chairs here, or chairs that you can easily take away. There's not the traditional large pews. Also, back here, there's no organ that you would see in other churches. And then they have a lot of the statues along this area. And then here's the altar, and you can walk behind the altar as well. Standing close to the altar, you can really see what makes this church so special, looking right up into the dome. This is a view of what the dome looks like from the outside. Another thing that makes this church so unique is behind the altar. This little area right here, reserved for the priests so they can sit and sing during Mass. If you're finding this video informative, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to receive more of this informative content, please subscribe to the channel. This church is unique because it has 2 different architecture styles. Notice the columns and the high cathedral ceilings. That is the Gothic style, whereas the dome is the Renaissance style. Now I will get on one of Milan's subways and head on over to Duomo, otherwise known as the Milan Cathedral. So this is really different. Look how long this thing is from that end to this end. Never seen one long car like this. And you can just keep walking and walking all this way. After a brief ride on the subway, I've made it to Duomo. This cathedral took nearly 6 centuries to complete. Construction began in 1386, and the final details were completed in 1965. It is the largest church in the Italian Republic. Look at these big statues as you enter in through the doors. And this is Duomo. Huge columns. Never seen columns this big on a church. Let's come over here to the center of this. This church is really big. Look at the massive stained glass windows also, along with these columns, make this church stand out more than the others. And this is a close-up view of the altar where the priest holds the Mass, right here. Look how big that is. Notice the pews that are very conservative, just a hard bench, little kneelers, but very plain and very simple. This is a good side view of the marble floors along with the stained glass windows. So one noticeable difference, instead of the organ being at the back like a lot of the churches, this organ is right here. Right there is their church organ. Look how huge that is. Look at this huge statue right here next to the stained glass windows. This is on the side of the church. Here, around behind the altar, look at these great big stained glass windows. Actually, there's several of them, giving the appearance of one large stained glass window. And this is a view directly behind the altar. Look at these stained glass windows when you look at them up close, how huge they are. Look at this. Really big. Admission fee to Duomo is €10. I will leave a link to the Duomo website in the description below. Interesting thing about this church being so big and the columns being so big, you can't really see around it to admire the other parts of it because these columns are so huge in the middle of it. Another thing about these massive columns and this unique church, they have individual statues high atop each column. Let me show you a close-up view of what I'm talking about. This is a close-up view of what I was just telling you. Notice the many statues that surround this upper column. Also, check out how this one statue has been restored while the others have remained original. Up close at the center door in Duomo, it's not just a door, it's got a lot of statues, sculptures on it. Notice this individual's nose, how gold it is. That's from many, many years of people rubbing his nose. Also over here, the body, people rubbing it, and that's why it's gold like that, the body oils of the people. And each one, look at this, all little statues, all on the door that make it up. And it's interesting how they choose to rub on certain parts. Many, many people. The hands here, the leg here, the golden foot. If you remember the golden foot from Switzerland, Bern, there's the golden foot of Milan. So this is the big statue right next to Duomo. So let's go explore right next to Duomo. Let's take a walk down this way. So let's take a look at this little area here. If you plan on shopping in this area, be prepared to spend a lot of money. There's nothing but high-end, expensive shops here. This is the center dome, right here. You can go that way, that way, that way, or that way. So 5 different places to enter and exit from. And this is the heart of it. There's Prada, there's Dior, Louis Vuitton, another Prada. Less than 100 yards away from Duomo, I came upon this really cool little church. You are looking at St. Mary's near St. Cedarus. This is an Italian Renaissance structure. It was completed in 1482. It took 6 years to build. This is an up-close view near the altar. Notice the marble floors, and what really makes this church special is the dome high above it, right there, and also the 2 half domes just below it. Those 2 things really make this church pop. Look at the architecture on this. This is really neat. This is really different. The ceiling right on up to the center dome. It's near the altar right here. Facing the altar. You just never know what kind of a gem of a little church you'll find. Just walking the streets of Italy, and this just popped up on my path. Pretty nice. No organ in the back, no organ pipes, but the columns really make this church look neat. This part of the church is what is known as the baptismal room. This is where they baptize a person coming in new to the Catholic faith. Look at this, really neat structure up top, the columns. And here is that church where I was at earlier, right through here, right in the business center. And here's an old traditional trolley car coming by. And finally, I come to this little beauty, the Temple of San Sebastian. It is a late Renaissance style church. The cylindrical church is shaped like a can capped with a dome. The octagonal church was commissioned in 1576 after the end of a season of plague, dedicated to Saint Sebastian. You are looking at a 360-degree view of San Sebastian. This is a close-up view of the altar. Now, looking to the back of the church from the altar, notice the 2 organs to the left and to the right of the center door, along with the dome high above, make this one of my favorite churches in Europe. One of my favorite things to do in Milan is walking the streets admiring the architecture. Look at the work craftsmanship on the balconies itself. Look at that. Old historic buildings in Milan. If you have time when you're in Italy to visit Milan, I recommend you doing it. It is a city that should not be ignored. If you would like to see my other videos on Europe, please click on the link now. Thank you so much for watching.